What's up, everybody? We are live. It's the Philly Blitz Pod number 97. Uh, Javon Hargrave episode. I'm Parth here with Pierre and Quell. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good, man. We're inching closer towards the draft, so today we're going to talk about some positions in need for the Eagles and dive a little bit into draft prospects, looking into Quell's world a little bit, bro.
Well, beloved my brothers, and then everybody else who celebrates. It is Adam, one and only Marquell Fripp Owens. And welcome in. I'm glad to have you guys. It's clearly, like you said, about a month out from draft day. We're knee deep into the content at this point. It's almost sickening, actually.
Well, it's definitely that time of year. There's no real football on. March Madness is on. So
Hey, man, don't disrespect the UFL like that.
Is the UFO on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it started this week. Shout out to
Yeah,
the
they don't do a
defenders
good
getting
job
the
of
win.
advertising it. I usually just see once people start tweeting about it, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I'll tap in on it. What, Saturdays, right?
Saturdays and Sundays, I
Oh,
believe.
both? Okay. Okay. Well, I probably will not be watching, but maybe I'll watch. But that's
He
how
gonna
those things.
catch the highlights on ESPN.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody actually does something, we'll see. Oh, is that why I saw the video of destroying? They played some music when he missed. I thought it was from last year. See?
Yeah.
All right, I see. Look at that, connecting the dots. Anyways, like Pierre said, we're gonna just talk about some draft stuff. And I mean it's the Philly Blitz, so who do the Eagles need, right? So I think if we're looking at it overall, edge they addressed a little bit in the offseason, but getting some youth there and some more bodies is never a bad thing, and especially with Howie Roseman, that's a thing. D tackle, I think, is gonna be a hole on the team as well. So just anywhere on the D line. Then you got safety, right? With CJ gone, we don't need to
That's
get into
the
Sydney.
interesting one right there.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, I think you're gonna need bodies. So it depends on where you take them, but you're gonna probably need to take somebody, unless maybe. I mean, Justin Simmons hasn't signed yet, right? That's what
Nah.
everybody's talking about. Yeah, so
But I mean, there was the report last offseason that him and Fangio didn't really click, right?
I thought he loved Fangio. I don't know.
I don't know. It's been mixed signals. I
Yeah.
did hear something similar to that, Pierre, but then I also heard something this off season where
Yeah,
basically
I think that's what I'm thinking about. He was getting interviewed, and he was like, "Oh, Fangio was awesome. He was
yeah,
super
it
effusive in his
was
praise."
strange.
So who knows? So safety is on there, and then I think two kind of sleeper ones you would maybe see is wide receiver. Maybe someone else to. I mean, Jahan has 1 year left, but Johnny Wilson is on hinge and not hitting the jugs machine. Um, but that's definitely one to keep an eye on. And then we've brought it up every time we talk about the draft with O'Tackle. With Lane saying he'll play, but you know doesn't hurt to keep an eye on the future. And with Lane's injury history, we need to shore up the offensive line as well. So Stout probably has a couple of his guys.
Yeah, but with the O line, like they added, I'm forgetting the guy's name. Tackle, he played for Houston and Miami. Kendall Lamb, is that his name? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, him, and then they just re-signed Matt Pryor. So I mean, I don't know if those might signal that O line won't be like a pressing need for them because they added bodies there. I mean, I can still
See,
see them adding guys.
the odd thing about it is, and I mean, of course, we can have the conversation about the big weapon hole at safety right now, but typically when you talk about the Eagles, the one thing that Howie Roseman has typically done a really good job of historically is shoring up needs on the roster heading into draft day, where we sitting here having these conversations like they could really go best player available. We don't really know which direction the team would go. So even with them adding Lyman, wow, I don't think that'll push offensive linemen to the top of the board. I don't think it necessarily kind of removes it, especially when you listen to Howie Roseman. You know the quote, Pierre. He's addicted to drafting an offensive and defensive linemen. So
And you don't you it like you said, Quote, Howie does a good job addressing some of those needs. And they say like you never want to go into the draft with a need, right? You want to go into a draft with things addressed and then be able to take the best player, the best fit, whatever it might be. It's 30-year-old Matt Pryor, and these are guys who are getting cut from other teams, right? So it's not like this is some solution, and especially for the future. And that's mostly what I would be thinking about right now. And I think Howie's going to do it. I think Howie's going to think that way too, because I know we bring up the Dillard pick and those things too, but Mailata was that same draft, and it turned out that we did need him, just not for Lane, right? So you never know how these things work. It can go one of two ways, and Mailata is obviously the movie story, so it's not like you can really bank on that. But I definitely think it's something that they'll have their eye on.
The fact that Matt Pryor is 30 years old is insane.
I looked it up. That's why I knew he was 30. I was like, he's got to be old 34.
Now. No, it feels like he's younger.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. He was 34. I literally was gonna be like 34-year-old Matt Pryor.
Yeah,
and then
it feels like he's been here forever.
What year was he? What year was it? Was he the same? Was he the Wentz draft? Or the year after?
Let me go check. Eagles 2018. No, so that'd be the Avante and Dallas draft, right?
Yeah.
Let me see.
Yeah, one other position you didn't bring up was tight end, Dallas Goedert. He's also entering the final year of his deal, and I know they've been in on a couple of the guys in this class, so that could be somewhere they could look to target to.
Yeah, there's still some options in free agency, right? Like I feel like there were still some tight end names that I saw where I was like, well, it's not necessarily a solution, but and Dallas is still on the team, right? So. Yeah, it's interesting, man. And they drafted Dallas so early into Zach's career, like not early, but earlier. He sat on the bench for a year, and then he played split snaps. They just didn't do the same thing. I mean, I guess there's Calcaterra, but I don't think anybody's talking themselves into Grant Calcaterra playing 100% of the snaps at tight end, right? So
no, I keep telling y'all, it's
you think so,
grandson?
Huh?
I keep telling you, it's gonna be Kyle and grandson.
Oh, yeah, they added him. They added him and Harrison Bryant in free agency. Which I mean, those aren't needle movers, but they signed them for a reason.
That's essentially what I'm. Point is look, Dallas won a lot of big games for us with like that Saints game. He won that, right, and he was huge in a lot of other games. But Dallas wasn't always in the lineup, and so when it comes to replacing those snaps, I don't think they're going to be in a hurry to go bring in some, big name at tight end who's going to also command a lot of snaps. You have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. If you have someone who can do the job, be a viable option at tight end, I don't think it's, the end of the world. But that I'm not trying to take away from, what Dallas Goedert brings on the field either, because, when he's healthy, he's a monster. But it's always felt like, if he's healthy, he's a monster, right? And that's kind of a big asterisk to have every year.
And I mean, he's the same age that Zach Ertz was when they drafted him. So I mean, it's kind of the clock is ticking, it seems.
Absolutely.
It's an interesting conversation there because, I mean, when you look at it in a roster building standpoint, you do, like you said, Parth, have the conversation of, well, when you were out these games, the offense really didn't miss a beat, for lack of a better term. I don't want to say that they were better without him, because clearly when you seen the playoffs and you saw the impact that he made throughout the playoffs, I believe he was the team's leader. Well, he became the franchise's leader in a multitude of things, receptions and receiving yards throughout the playoffs. So, I mean, clearly you can see how his importance to the roster. But when you're sitting there and you basically in these rooms, you having these conversations, how exactly do you, I don't want to say do you go about this, because I mean, that was of course Howie, I often refer back to what Howie said, with patience, the younger players playing and all that stuff. But you also, we were supposed to be in the middle of this 3-year window where you just supposed to be your Super Bowl winning window. You won one. You feel like you can win a couple more possibly. Now you got to find a way to balance that between looking towards the future and keeping the team together. But when you look at the Eagles offense, you know how he joked about it and being the Justice League and everything. You took away the receivers and the running back. There goes Dallas Goedert. You took away Dallas Goedert. There goes the receiver. It was like almost a pick your poison kind of thing.
Right.
And I mean, of course, when you look towards team building in the future, sometimes you lose things like that. And that brings back up the conversation of, like we mentioned, well, we were productive without him. So how much will we really miss him? So, I mean, it's just interesting to me to see exactly how they would go about it. Because like you said, he's still on the team, at least till further notice. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, I guess I don't see the harm in just playing out the contract, like whatever. You know, you don't necessarily get anything back, but you know you'll get a comp pick at some point. So,
But I will say there is a guy in this class that has a connection to someone who they just hired on the staff, who I'm pretty high on. But we can get into that later.
Oh, buddy, we about to go through this again.
Go ahead.
Just gonna be Latu all over again. But
no, you want to jump into the prospects?
Yeah, I mean, might as well just start with tight end then.
All right, give me 1 second. So, all right, start at tight end. Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU, who they met with at the combine. They seem to like him a lot. He's a son of former NFL All-Pro, NFL Hall of Famer Jason Taylor. Just as a little bit of an overview before I hand it off to you, Quell. He's a really fluid mover, good hands. He can handle blocking and chipping DNs, whether he's on the move or in space. And the cherry on top of them, NFL.com's pro comp forum. Wait for it, Dallas Goedert.
And see, that's when the team has been connected to him throughout the process. I'm not sure if you guys remember the tweet when I put it out, where I was like, the Mason Taylors, the Philadelphia sirens are getting louder and louder by the day. And I mean, still, that remains true to this very moment. But Mason, he's interesting to me because I can understand why he's somewhere in between the Dallas Goedert and the Zach Ertz. I always said that Zach Ertz was such a proficient pass catcher when he got into the league. Not that isn't to say that Dallas Goedert wasn't, but I also said that Dallas Goedert was what Zach Ertz was at year, what was that, 7? Dallas Goedert came into the league with that. He just didn't have the route running acumen and things of that nature.
As a blocker, you're saying, right?
I mean, a little bit as a whole, as a prospect.
So you're saying Dallas came in as like a 7th-year Zach Ertz?
Well, in terms of what Zach offered to the team, yes, because Zach wasn't really a good blocker when he came into the league.
That's my point. Right. So I mean, so I agree with you, Mike. I guess that's what I was asking, because when I think about the two of them, right, I think Dallas came in, he was a strong blocker, he had the size and everything, and you were able to put him essentially on an island a lot of times and depend on him. Zach took a long time to learn. I guess I guess I understand what you're saying. It was really just like focus, right? Like Dallas had like the crazy hands, but to this day he still suffers from drops because it's like, bro, like just look the ball in. You don't need to circus it every single time. Sorry, go on. That makes sense.
No, I feel you, but it's just bringing it with Mason Taylor. I feel like he's a fine blend between the two. I feel like he isn't quite the blocker that Dallas Goedert was coming into the league, but he's a better blocker than what Zach Ertz was when he came in. And of course, when you mentioned him, Pierre, as a pass catcher, I mean, very, very, very reliable hands, great body control. The best part about him, if you ask me, is him at the catch point. He is very reminiscent of Dallas Goedert in their early stages of kind of like let's play backyard football, put it up a little bit. You're a little boy to me kind of thing.
It's kind of like he has some like security blanketness to him, if that's a way of putting it.
That's a solid way to put it out, Ags. Now, I mean, the positional alignment is where it becomes interesting for me. He's done a lot as the wide, basically like a wide tight end, inline guy. And I mean, of course, like you mentioned, Parth, the Eagles did a lot of and continue to do a lot of moving Dallas Goedert around, splitting them out wide, things of that nature. I think he could offer that at some point. I don't think, again, he isn't quite the route runner that Zach and Dallas were, but he's still pretty good himself. So it's a pretty interesting comp if you ask me. Now, I mean, as you mentioned, Pierre, the team has a very interesting relationship with another tight end in this class, given the hire that they've made. What can you say, man? Harold Fannin?
Harold Fannin Jr.
It's an interesting. I talked about him on a recent episode of Boom or Bust, where the conversation with him is so interesting, but because he's like the epitome of why I got into scouting. How I put it, one of those guys where you look at on Saturday and you like, bro, like you see the production he putting out there on the field. That guy right there is a football player, and then you look at drafts and you like, oh, when's he gonna get picked, basically? And I feel like with Harold, I love a lot of what he offers. My question with him is how does your game translate to the next level when the offense isn't constructed through you, for lack of a better term?
But that's where I think the connection to Scott Loeffler, I think that's how you say it, who the Eagles hired as their QB coach. He was a former Bowling Green head coach. That's where I think that connection could kind of, I guess, mitigate some of those concerns, because this is a guy who did structure the offense around Harold Fannin. So kind of integrating him into the offense, because we know
you're not going to do that, right? Like you have AJ Brown and Devontae.
Yeah, no, Smith. I don't. No. I don't mean like constructing the offense like around him, but I'm just saying from like a usage standpoint.
I kind of get what Pierre's saying. To play devil's advocate. Yes, it's an episode now, but of course I get what Pierre's saying, because even when you look at this year, and I mean, of course they had to go through camp to work out the kinks, and even then, I mean, it's still a work in progress. But you look at how they use Johnny Wilson, how clearly there was a plan behind the selection. Hopefully he can continue to develop as a pass catcher. But the things that you could do with him on the field, with and without the ball, like him as a blocker, things of that nature, they kind of constructed ways to get him on the field so they can get him the growth and the reps that he needed, even though he probably needed the extra time. So it's not to say that they wouldn't. At the same time, like you said, it's not like we're gonna go out there on 3rd and 3 and say, yeah, Harold, you're getting the ball.
It's the viability of it that like I take issue with, right? Because I think in theory I agree, right? The connection is there. They should know how to do that. But you know, like you just said, Quell, we had a couple 3rd downs where we went Johnny Wilson's way, and he's a rookie, right? And so rookie mistakes are gonna happen, and like it's totally fine, and that's how it's gonna be. But you can't do that on this team right now. We don't really have room for rookie mistakes. And that's why, you know, Cooper and Quinyon were so remarkable, because it was just like, oh, you know, just step in and don't make any mistakes ever. And, you know, we'll be fine. And that's why the Eagles defense had the success it did. Right. So it depends on the prospect, of course. But yeah, I think it's just like, it's tough because, like, you know, if I'm AJ Brown, right, and I'm, you know, reading inner excellence, and I only have like 2 targets this game, and we know AJ Brown's mentality now, so I'm not like, you know, projecting or anything, and I think this is fine. I want him to have this mentality. If I saw, like, you know, we're gonna do something special for Harold Fannin, and then he drops it, and then they do it again, and he drops it again, I would probably lose my mind. Maybe even the first time, if I was fired up enough and I was having enough of a frustrated day. So I don't know. I think. And I think what that also comes down to is where you draft the player, right? So if you draft Fannin early, there's kind of like you're going to have to get him his snaps, right? With Johnny,
he's a projected kind of late 3rd round, early 4th round kind of guy.
Yeah,
so, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily, yeah.
Even 3rd round, right? I mean, we saw how much what's his name was playing. Why am I forgetting his name, dude?
Jalix.
Yeah, Jalix played, right? So it depends. I look at the first 3 rounds as like, these guys I want to see play. Everything after that is like, hey, like let's figure it out and see if we get anything nice. So that's why, like, the Johnny Wilson pick, I have no issue with it. And even that 3rd down, I'll give it to him, right? Like, because if he makes that play and all of a sudden is building his confidence, it's good. In the Super Bowl, I don't know if I want to see.
Wilson scored a touchdown in the playoffs.
He did, but and then I guess it was in the Super Bowl he dropped it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Johnny, they were having fun there, but yeah, it's just that's where the allocation of resources is going to be interesting to see, because I think, especially with last year, the way the first 3 rounds played and how important they were. How are you not going to aim for that, right? But I mean, I think they might have set like a unreasonable bar of success with just like, how it all worked out. It was something else last year.
And see, that's the thing right there for me, and it continues to harp back on the same point I was making with the Dallas Goddard conversation, where I mean, I understand what Howie is saying and what the team is doing. I think it's a great idea. That's how you have growth and continuity. You gotta take these leap of faiths and put faith in some rookies. But like Parth said, sometimes I mean, no one goes 100% in this, basically. And what we got from our rookies last year was so remarkable that I don't want it to put an unrealistic bar on this class where they sitting there and we take a guy in the first round who may or may not play, and they like, well, last year our first round pick was doing this and that, and I just don't want us to forget basically where we came from historically. Last year was an outlier, for lack of a better term, in a whole lot of ways. We signed a running back, we drafted cornerbacks, things of that nature.
Not even just for us. It was an outlier for the NFL ever. Like it was like the greatest offseason ever, possibly. It was crazy, right? Like, you're completely right. Like, just taper standards, right? Like and doesn't mean you can't expect greatness, but like, dude, everything is not gonna like work out completely perfectly exactly like it did last year. Like, they should have made a movie about the Eagles last year instead of the Chiefs.
I guess my whole thing is, again, how do you continue to find this blend? Because you 9 times out of 10, I mean, these are young guys, that the guys that we were talking about their continued development over their last year or so. They're the guys that have to step into these roles of the players that we've known and loved over the last decade plus. And now you got new young guys who we have no idea how it turns out, that we kind of got to put faith in. Like, I mean, we talked about the whole Justin Simmons thing, and I mean, I have faith in their scouting room and things of that nature. They've earned that right based on how they've drafted over the last 4 or 5 years. But you let's just say you tried out there a rookie safety and things of that nature. And I mean, again, just don't want the expectations for him to be okay. Well, now you got to be better than CJ. You got to be great, because I mean, again, you don't draft for today. It'd be nice if it impacts today, but you draft for tomorrow, kind of thing.
Okay, so 3 more guys before we move to safety. So I'm gonna just say these names, and you tell me whether or not you think they're on the Eagles draft board queue. Terrence Ferguson, tight end out of Oregon. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Gunnar Helm out of Texas.
I believe so. Matter of fact, yeah. If you ask me if I had to pick between which one was on the board between Helm and Ferguson, I'd probably say Helm.
Okay, give us a little bit of the background, just a little bit.
And tell us why.
Yeah.
Give me a second. Let me pull up my board for you. So with Gunnar, I feel like it's where the offense, it's kind of a projection a bit, but kind of the direction of where the offense wants to go. He kind of like we mentioned with Mason Taylor, really good pass catcher, has an ability to, for lack of a better term, live in the middle of the field. He is exactly, we had the comp for Mason Taylor to Dallas Goedert because of how he basically the skill set, for lack of a better term. But in terms of how Dallas Goedert plays the game, how we utilize Dallas Goedert, this is Gunnar Helm. That those all you could think about is, like you brought up earlier, the Saints game, Parth, where just him in the middle on mesh in the middle of the field. You want to get him one-on-one with these kind of guys, and I would love to call him a quarterback's best friend kind of thing. specifically in the red zone, which again, when we love to get Dallas Goedert involved, it's kind of the usage, how he's utilized. Why I'm intrigued of why Philadelphia will probably value him over Ferguson.
Okay, and then as last guy, Jackson Hall's out of Georgia Tech. I know the big calling card with him is his blocking ability. He's kind of one of those throwback tight ends.
I want to say no. It like in a perfect world, yeah. But I mean, like as we mentioned earlier, or as I mentioned earlier, them bringing in a guy like Kylan Granson or even Harrison Bryant, guys who are known for blocking abilities and things of that nature. I mean, Granson a little bit of in between. He's probably going to take on that Jack Stoll role, for lack of a better term, a little bit of both. But I feel like they think that they have that in the building. And I mean, it'll be, I think they're looking more towards a versatility kind of thing where they don't want just purely one or the other.
Okay, so let's move to safety. And this guy, I think he could probably be the number one guy on the Eagles board if you want to look at potential guys who will be there at 32. Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia, blue chip prospect, versatile chess piece type of guy, good size, good athleticism, high IQ. Bucky Brooks, he described him as a quote football savant, right? Like he legit pops off the screen when you watch him, whether he's in coverage, run support as a tackler. He has all the tools and traits to be a day one impact type of player. He can do whatever you ask of him in coverage, whether that's center fielder in cover one or a split field guy in cover two, cover tight ends or receivers out of the slot. Like the dude can do it all. And like for me, there's no perfect prospect, but like I feel like Malachi is as safe of a bet as you're gonna get in this draft.
He is. I wouldn't necessarily call him the number one prospect on the board when we get there, because working through a bunch of mock drafts over the last week or so, there's no telling how this board can fall. And there's a bunch of different ways that it can fall where it's like, look, I love Malachi Starks and I understand that safety may be a need, but you probably won't pay. If you ask Howie Roseman to pick between, let's say, Starks and Donovan Azaraku, I mean, he's not going to pick Malachi Starks. I'm sorry. It's fun, but
a man can dream.
Yeah.
And you do this every year. You've been right 1 year.
Like it's interesting. It's fun to think about. And I mean, I've kind of, like I say on every episode of Boom or Bust, one of the greatest things about this is lessons learned and how do you implement them from year to year. And one of the lessons I don't learn is, I guess I don't know Howie Roseman as well as I thought I know Howie Roseman. So maybe he might just toss all autonomy out the window and go draft a safety. I just don't foresee it happening, basically. Not that early, especially when you got guys that, like, it's a really safe safety class, for lack of a better term, where you can get guys in the middle area of this class that offer some stability at the position. They may not be the blue chip prospect like Malachi Starks, but they offer what Vic Fangio will want for the position.
Yeah, and I think I got 2 or 3 of those guys on my list. But next up, Nick Emanwari. He's the classic traits over tape guy, right? Like he blew up the combine, but when you watch him, like he flashes, but you can kind of see and feel the, I guess, rawness. Like his tackling. I mean, for as big as he is, I think he's 6'2", 6'3", right, Q?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you would expect him to kind of be, I guess, more physical or more like consistent as a tackler, but he does have his inconsistencies there. And it's just he's a really raw safety.
I feel like he plays the game, specifically in this game, he would play the game a lot like what we get from Reed Blankenship. How you remember the conversation we had where before our linebacker started playing well, it was like, well, Reed is the linebacker. It's like he's always got his nose in the box in the play. He done came from all the way out West Bubba, and still is like his point of emphasis in life is to be at the football in the box. And that is a lot of what Nick Emanwari is like. In a perfect world, I'm not quite sure. I hear a lot of people say they really love to fit with him in a Vic Fangio scheme, and I can understand why. Because you remember the conversation you and I had last year about Coop. My whole problem with him was going laterally. That's kind of a similar conversation with Nick. And clearly, this scheme it saves you from having to do that. So it's him and his ability to keep his eyes on the field. He's shown an ability to play very well in the split safety role. It's just. I feel like his career would be best with someone who can help utilize his superpower. He deserves to be, and I mean, this is not saying that he's going to be these kind of guys by any metric, but just giving you guys an idea how he deserves to be used. He deserves to be used like the Brian Dawkins and the Troy Polamalu's who lived at around the line of scrimmage. He deserved to be used like Talise, not Hufunga. What's the guy from San Francisco? I think he just went to Denver.
It is Hufunga.
Oh, yeah. Hufunga. I thought I was saying the lineman guy, but
No, you're right.
Talise Hufunga, where you kind of put him in a position to utilize his superpowers to his ability, and he deserves to impact the field from a multitude of places. And I don't want to say I don't feel like this scheme can't give him that. It could in a perfect world, but I mean, like the conversation starts and ends every time we talk about players like this. But we have Cooper DeJean, so what are you going to do with Cooper DeJean? So, I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay, yeah. But two other guys. One of my personal favorite safeties in the class, Andrew Makuba out of Texas. I kind of view him as like Malachi Starks light in terms of playmaking ability, physicality, and run support, versatility, his instincts and IQ. He just isn't the same like blue chip type talent, like in terms of a like full on the field trait standpoint, right? He's primarily his own safety. I think he profiles really well as like a center fielder robber type of guy, which we know Fangio does like to utilize his safeties as. He has all the pieces that you want, like the IQ, the coverage ability in zone. He's really rangy, physical, and run support. I think he did some work out of the slot at Texas, but what do you think about him, Q?
Give me 1 second, pulling them up now. I should have used my time much more wisely. But I think with Makuba, he's interesting. I had a conversation. You guys will see it once this episode of Boomer Bust is out, but we just had a general conversation about the safeties overall, and it felt like Makuba really could have came out last year when he was at Clemson, and probably been a day 2 or 3 pick. But what he was able to do for himself at Texas, it was huge. It was honestly a lot of prospects were able to make themselves a lot of money this year at Texas. All of the guys that we're talking about at near the top of the class for them, with the exception of the offensive tackles, because we don't know if you can play offensive tackle, but that's a different conversation for a different time. But as far as Makuba, I can see why you say that. They utilized him in a bit of a versatile way. It honestly gave them an opportunity to be able to move Jade Byrne, who was that nickel guy for them for a long time, outside, and he actually performed very well because a guy like Makuba was able to do a little bit of this versatility. And the best part about his game that a lot of you guys would love, I mean, it drives me nuts because when he misses the tackle, it's like, can you stop it? Wrap up, please. But that boy, he's looking for a body. And when he finds it,
lights out.
Don't we have someone like that?
He plays, honestly, he would probably be a great, I don't want to call it replacement because I don't necessarily know how they feel about Sid. We'll find out a lot about how they feel about Sid this year.
He's like a more in control Sid. Yeah. And I think that's kind of like, that's why, like the conversation me and you had, Q, a couple weeks ago, like why they viewed CJ as expendable, right? Like, I think, when you look at a safety in this scheme or this system, like this entire system, it's all about, the presenting the idea of complexity while being, pretty simple, like in terms of the rules and what you ask your defensive backs to do. Only thing is with CJ is, like, as we know, he's kind of undisciplined from a coverage standpoint. He
how I put it always was they rather you be perfect than be right.
Yeah.
And CJ was right a lot of times, hence all the turnovers that he always had. But then you had the situations where he blown coverage because of his basically aggressiveness, which I don't think. If they can get a lot safer at the position, I think they could live without the turnovers, which is a crazy statement because I like to think that the turnovers were a major reason that they won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think it remains to be seen. I mean, I get what you guys are saying, but CJ produced twice. He got 6 interceptions both times he's been on this team, right? And like, those turnovers matter. Turnovers change games, and he came up big in a lot of games. It's going to be. I think it's going to be difficult to replace. I mean, and he was also important in the run game. CJ's improvement last year compared to the first time he was here in the run game was different. I mean, every game you could depend on him to just have like some kind of crazy stick. He smacked the hell out of Bijan. I remember that. That was crazy.
Nick was running down the sideline Monday Night Football.
I don't want to be that guy, but he did improve in terms of a tackler for the second go round. But I mean, when you go from tackling wheels to tackling people, I hope you get better.
Huh?
Shout out to the coach that was a human death dummy all season.
Oh, the Purdue video, is that what you're talking about?
No, they was just tackling. They wouldn't remember Fangio.
Oh, that's right. That one guy was just standing there, and yeah.
Everybody just, man, I know he went home feeling crazy. Like, dog, I need a raise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought he was much better. I thought the safeties tackled well, and I think that was a reason that the Eagles' defense was so sound. It's like there was good tackling at every level, and I thought CJ was important to that. I didn't see CJ as expendable, necessarily play wise. Like I think he's important to the defense, but I think financially, there's just that's why I take issue with the word expendable. I think it was a financial decision because, I mean, I guess it is expendable technically, but I mean they're gonna have to pay Jalen Carter. Like, dude, how much money is he gonna make? Like, we have no idea. Like that contract is gonna be massive, and then you have all these other contracts that you're already paying. And Jalen's contract is going to start, hitting now as well. So it's just tough financial decisions, but I wouldn't say his play on the field was expendable. I think it's going to be something to replace. I wish he would take a safety in the first round. I doubt it.
Gonna do it. I
think
we can get one on day 2. So don't take one in the second round. Please don't argue with me for 45 minutes.
Yeah. But that's why I said what I said about the first 3 rounds. I think that's where you're going to see players who will play, and I think we're going to see a D tackle. I think we're going to see a safety, and then I'm not sure of what that last pick will be. But I think that'll be the first 3 rounds in some order.
I think with the safeties in this class, it kind of goes back to what Q was saying, where it's like on day 2, day 3, there are just a lot of depth in this class. Like, one of the other guys I had was a Jonas Sanker out of Virginia, right? One of the more under the radar kind of guys in this class, but I think he does everything you'd want out of a safety in the Vic Fangio system, right? Like, he's physical in the run support coming downhill. He's another guy who, like Quell said, like, he looking for a body when he out there, right? He has experience as a split field safety, down in the slot. He's a good, not great athlete, but I think he can hold his own, down the field. I think, he has the IQ and he has the ability to, from a schematic standpoint, he can take in a lot in terms of whatever you ask him to do, right? Like, he did a lot in terms of playing, downhill and laterally as a sub-package player. They moved him around a ton in the box, at post safety, single high, in the slot. Like, he spied quarterbacks, he played on special teams. So he feels like the perfect, like, Howie Roseman kind of 4th round safety that he would take. Like, I think he makes a lot of sense for them.
Definitely, man. I think that was actually a really great pool. This, you want to talk about versatility. This was one of the guys where I was talking about, hey, a guy like Billy Bowman, we're late in the class. You got guys where
Wait, you can continue, but Billy is just so small, man.
He's
He's
so
like
small, brother,
5'8".
but he plays with the heart of a lion, man. And you know how I feel about short
So did Donnell
players.
Pumphrey.
No, this is different. This is different. You guys know
He
how I
like
feel
a
about
supercharged Devontae.
That's a funny way to put it. He puts himself in a little better positions than Avante.
You know who we said was the defensive version of Devontae?
Avante.
Emmanuel Forbes.
Look, man.
He just skinny.
I'm about to say that matters when you out here getting matched up with.
Yeah, I guess safety you have like a little bit more room, but it's tough to play defense when you're really small.
Yeah, you're right. Which is why players like that, they find homes as these versatile guys. These you can use me as a safety, you can use me as a nickel. I guess why I'm so high on Billy. The last time I felt this good about AKA a short guy prospect was Trent McDuffie. When I said, man, hell with this. He plays the game with the ferocity of 1,000 men. He plays the game like you owe him something, like you owe him the respect that he deserves. And I feel a lot with that with Billy. It remains to be seen if it can translate like it did with Trent. But I feel really good about it. But kind of back to Jonah, like I said, well, Billy, it's a lot of the versatility thing, a lot of what they asked him to do. I really appreciate what Jonah brings down as in run support. He's a damn good tackler. Him specifically in the open field. He isn't going to throw a shoulder at you. He isn't going to chop his feet and wait to see what move you're going to make. He's going to square up with you and he's going to bring you down. It's actually fun to watch. You don't see players like that nowadays play with that kind of intention to tackle, at least not.
How long are his arms?
His arms are.
Give me 1 second. Looking it up. His arms are.
I'm not doing it again, man. I'm not doing it again.
Look, man.
Sorry, he can be as good of a tackler as he wants. I can't watch a D-back with short arms again, bro. I will snap.
You gotta watch the player, man.
32 on the fourth.
No, I'm not gonna watch the player because it does not matter. Because when your arms are short and then there's a tall receiver, he's just gonna go like this and take it out from in front of him.
I mean, yeah, but that happens to us all, man. Sometimes you just get beat.
Yeah, but I mean, dude, there's a reason. There's one Trent McDuffie and there's more Avonte Maddoxes than Emmanuel Forbes. That's my only point. I agree with what you're saying. Scout the player.
In Jonah's instance, Jonah isn't really a smaller guy. Jonah's 6 feet.
6 foot, 205. I think you're thinking of Billy Bowman.
Billy's.
I'm still stuck on that. I'm literally just still stuck on that. I can't do the short D-back because it's just frustrating. Because it's like, damn, dude, you're in the right position. You're doing everything right. It's just not his fault, and that's when it just sucks. And there's just nothing you can do about it. Quell, have you done any research on Triquez Bridges? He had a pretty good pro day.
I haven't yet. That was one of the guys who, like I mentioned on a recent Boom of Us podcast, it feels like every single day a name hits my table. Like, why the hell did I watch this guy yet?
Last week they had the pro day and like he ran in the 4.3s. And he ran like a 4.38.
Safety.
Well, he's well, that's what I like about him. He's versatile. So basically, I mean, with the Gators last year, it was a shit show when it came to health in the defensive backfield. So we had Asa Turner come in from Washington from that Huskies team. He was supposed to come in and be a safety, injured first game. So he's out. So then Triquez moves to safety. He's playing well at safety. Then Devin Moore and Jason Marshall Jr. both go down at corner for a couple games. So then Triquez has to step in and play corner. So he's playing outside corner. He played safety, and he played nickel last year. So I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be a very high draft pick, round wise. But I just think he's like an interesting guy where you just kind of like keep an eye on him. He's got that versatility, and maybe Fangio could do something with all that. So yeah, he ran a 4.38 at the pro day.
Shout out Angry Eagles fan, man. I see you.
Yeah,
Kevin Winston is
he's another guy I had on
man.
my list because
I need
he
to
has
check out
all
the
the tools.
first.
He has all the tools, and like the intangibles, it's just I don't know if they would have him like injury red flagged because the guy can play.
He can definitely play, and I mean if once I get all the feedback I need to see on that, he'd definitely be a bit higher on my board, kind of in the same breath of the Shavon Revel. Once I got the feedback on him, where it was like, okay, I see where you are in terms of your recovery. I feel good about the prospect. So
Then the last guy I had on my list was Xavier Watts. He's a legit
yes,
ball
I was
hawk.
gonna be
Like,
pissed if you didn't say his name.
Ball magnet. Like the production, everything, all that is there. It's just tackling or the consistency of him as a tackler. That's an issue.
I'm about to say, and that's the problem with it. Like he has to want to, he has to try. Like he is not like he is throwing shoulders or whiffing and things of that nature. It's just about finishing the job. I mean, it's nice on this team where if you can, man, we'd love you here, Xavier. Just keep doing what you do because we play the type of football where 11 hats are coming to the ball. So if you can just touch them, somebody beside you. But in terms of you as a prospect, you just got to finish the job, man. Just like grab his ankle or something, grab his shoestring, do something, finish the tackle. That's it. That's the frustrating part about it. But him, in terms of everything else, I personally think that he's the kind of guy that they would look for. He's the when I think safeties in Philadelphia Eagles, he's the one guy that I sat there and was like, I think he could excel here. I'd be curious to see exactly how much they continue to run man, especially if they run him in. But I mean, hell, they run man with Reed Blankenship. They clearly don't give a damn. But
Reed be getting cooked when he in man. I'm not.
That's why I said they clearly don't give a damn. I be sitting here like, bro, why do y'all can y'all stop putting let him keep being the
safeties in man constantly? They don't give a damn. CJ too. CJ was just not great in man last year, and
bro,
in the red zone, every time. So I mean, I feel like we've talked about like the linemen a good amount. Jeez, I'm gonna sneeze again.
We got D tackle on the edge.
No, I was gonna say I feel like we talk about that a lot. Let's give us some receivers. I like the receivers. Give me some realistic receivers, Quell, that you think the Eagles are going to target. I don't think they're going to target receiver until probably after first 3 rounds would be my assumption, right? I mean, do you guys feel differently?
I don't know.
Let me ask you this. If Luther Burden is there for some stretch of the imagination, if he's there at 64, do they pull the trigger?
Why is he dropping? I don't get it.
It's the same issue I feel like people had with like a guy like a Laviska Shenault. Like they're just overcomplicating it, which I know Laviska hasn't really turned out that well.
Yeah, that was not a great dude.
I can get why he used Laviska
from like a prospect or like a process standpoint. They're just it's like they're just overthinking it.
I feel like he's different than Laviska because I mean he just first off he was in the SEC on Missouri, and
man, look, Laviska played in the SEC too. It doesn't matter if it was on.
I thought he was Colorado State. I thought he was like.
You're right. You're right.
Transferred.
Yeah, like I mean, and he was playing on Missouri, and he produced year after year. Like I don't know. I think that's having not done a ton of like.
Draft this year wasn't really his best year. We could kind of. We can kind of relate that to quarterback play.
Last 2 years of production, dude. Like, I mean, it's just like he cooked Florida single-handedly. I remember that. It was something else. I don't know.
It's a strange conversation with Luther. I feel like that's one of those luxury picks, and I mean, it's one of those. If they did it, I'd understand why. I don't think that they would quite utilize that investment, especially because we already have two $30 million receivers. But he talk about a scheme fit where this is the kind of player who that's an easy button. And I don't necessarily think, granted, a lot of this, like I said, quarterback play and how he was utilized at Missouri, but I don't necessarily think Luther has been able to develop his skill set as a route runner the way he should have been. How he was utilized in 2023, him at his peak, you saw the flashes of him and what he could do on all three levels. This year, they kind of turned him into Debo Samuels, for lack of a better term.
Fair.
And again, I understand why outside of Armand Membu, the team was kind of lacking in talent on the offense. So you get him the ball and let him operate as quickly as possible was kind of the goal in mind. But I feel like him in Philadelphia, he doesn't have to be the route runner. We have the route runners at receivers right now. All he has to do is basically the manufactured touches kind of thing and be explosive with the football when you get those opportunities. Kind of, I guess the best way for me to put it, it sucks that Kellen isn't here anymore saying this, but in a perfect world, kind of how Pierre, I would like them to use Anais last year is ideally how they would utilize Luther in this situation.
I think, but then I think that comes back to the original question, right? Like if he's at 64, I don't know if that's worth the pick, frankly. Like, I mean, same thing that we were just talking about with tight end in the first 3 rounds. Like if you're, I don't think wide receiver 3 is enough of a pressing need to draft that high. Luther's a damn good player, but if there's a player there who's an equivalent draft grade, right, at D tackle, and you just went, you had safety first round. How about that?
CJ Saunders or Luther Burden, you know what the pick is.
Right. And I think that's what it comes down to.
Before we can move into D tackle after this, but another guy that I had on my list, Isaiah Bond. 3rd round, kind of late 2nd round. I know the thing with him is like speed, but I mean, does he translate anywhere else in this game to the league?
I don't know. That's the problem. I hope to see a lot more from him on a consistent level than what I did this year. Really wish he just would have went back to school. But I mean, it is what it is. I can't even say. I mean, of course, his thing is the speed, but it became frustrating because by the end, he got that stolen from him by Matthew Golden. So it was like, I mean, I just need him to become a bit more consistent at what a little bit of everything, but B, what he does. Catch the ball, learn how to track the football a little better, utilize his leverage a little more instead of just being a speed racer. He's one of them guys where it's like you got to learn how to make it your power instead of your only power, as I say yearly.
I also think
one more guy before you go, Parth. Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech. You just talked about how I would have liked them to use Anais Smith. He's the next kind of guy of that mold in this class for me. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Elijah Moore coming out of Ole Miss, in terms of a guy who's versatile, out of the slot. You can win with those manufactured touches. He's kind of a field stretcher, and he also can make some headway as a special teams player. I think he's 5'10", 193. So he has a little bit of, like I said, that Elijah Moore and Anais Smith usage to his game. Like, I think he'd be a nice number 3.
You ain't gotta give him that extra. 4. You ain't gotta try fake and give him that extra inch. He 5'9", man. He tried to make it sound a little, because he 5'10". That matters. But he's another one that interests me, kind of like what we talked about Luther Burden or the Anais Smith role, as we mentioned, the yards after catch. Kind of, it's a bit of a similar. Really, it'll be me explaining Luther Burden again for a little different circumstances, but explaining Luther Burden again nonetheless, where doesn't really offer like the most versatile route tree, but he offers an opportunity in the short area. He has really solid hands. Once you get the ball in his hands, he's a doozy to deal with. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring in one of those kind of guys, because I mean, ideally, that is what the
becomes
wide
that.
receiver 3 would be. But I mean, that's not what they used wide receiver 3 as last year. Like, even once they started to open up the offense a little more, like they allowed, like Jahan was a route runner. They did things to get him open down the field and all things of that nature. And I mean, the guys that we're talking about, they can potentially develop into that one day. But we're talking about guys that we kind of got to create these touches for them. And it should work out, especially in an offense like Philadelphia, because the reason it was so hard in college, because you was the only person on your offense. Now you're playing alongside stars. So, I mean, you'll be okay as a yak man in almost any offense, but just how do the receivers are utilized or being utilized in Philadelphia or will be utilized this year? That's the big question. But that's the one for me.
Jahan is still here. Right? Like that's
yes,
why.
I'm sorry. We don't mean to talk about you like you gone, Jahan.
That's why
we know.
I don't think they take a receiver in the first 3 rounds because, like, I mean, he's still here, and wide receiver 3 with the 2 guys.
If something happened, if the board looked good enough in round 3, I think they'd peak it. But between rounds 1 and 2, I don't want to say there isn't a receiver that can make them pull the trigger, but it'll be a very tough conversation for them to take a receiver over some of the other pressing needs that they could do.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I feel like, honestly, we'll see like the back end of that. What was it? 2019 draft or 2020 draft
with Hightower and Watkins.
Hightower, Watkins, and didn't they take one more guy, or was it Rager, Watkins, and Hightower? And I'm just
Rager, Watkins, and Hightower.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I think we might see something like that. One of those guys, Quell, I don't know if you've another Gator. You know any work on Chimere DK?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I have done probably 2 Gators so far.
Who'd you do? Cam Jackson and
I did Cam, and I did, surprisingly, for no damn, I don't want to say for no damn reason, but because the class isn't as strong as you would like it to be, Graham Mertz, oddly enough.
Oh, my boy Graham. Yeah. The type of guy you want.
I'd say for all the bull that I gave him over the last year and a half, he wasn't as bad as I made him out to be. He's damn sure not as good as you thought he was. But
I thought if he could just do his job, I thought he'd be fine. Everything didn't start rolling until later. And I mean, DJ Lagway is DJ Lagway. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do.
There was a lot that went on around him that didn't go right, that DJ made right. He was able to mask a lot of the issues that were going on that Graham couldn't.
Yeah, that is the interesting thing about them is like that O-line at the beginning of the year was god awful, and then DJ improved, and the O-line improved as well. Not just because of DJ and his ability in the pocket, but like the O-line as a unit improved. So I mean that's why I'm excited for next year. Chimere DK I think would be an interesting pick for one of the later rounds. He's just like. He's quarterback friendly. I think that's the best way that I would describe him. He's like when there's a scramble drill or something breaks down, he knows how to get open. He has that kind of sixth sense. He's a faster guy. He had a lot of free releases. So I think he'd be best out of the slot. I don't know how well he does against press, but he's just like he has those like long strides where he picks up space and yeah, I think he'd be an interesting guy to just kind of bring in and see. But yeah, I really think and especially with the way that Jahan, was coming about, and then in the Super Bowl he makes a big play. I think they could see Jahan having a bigger role. And then I don't even know why I said 2020 draft. I mean, just like last year with Anias and Johnny Wilson. I think we just see something.
I lied. I did 3 Gators. I also watched Elijah Badger too.
Oh, that's another guy. That's another guy. I think. Tell us something about Elijah.
Elijah, talk about athleticism, man. That it's the first thing that jump off the screen. You watch him. It's one of them guys where there are some players you watch where they have an ability to stop and start on a dime. And he's one of those guys. That's probably, if I had to say, if he had a superpower, that would be his superpower.
Those back shoulder fades were filthy, and that a lot of that was him.
Yeah, I was just about to say his body control. He's been able to put himself in a great position to make a lot of plays on footballs that he probably shouldn't have been able to been making plays on. Like I'm talking about minuscule windows. He offered a lot of high value plays where for lack of a better term, he wasn't a boring watch. There's some guys you watch them and you kind of got to rub your ass a little bit just going through the process. You watch him and immediately it's like, okay, that's fun. That's cool. Well, why the hell did you do that? Okay. Like a bit inconsistency, but a fun watch nonetheless. I appreciate another guy that I appreciate when he gets the football into his hand. Now, he pisses me off. He's one of those guys where I don't want to call him, and I mean, it makes sense why he's a Parth guy. He's a wide receiver. He's a me man. When he knows he's not getting the football, his routes are lazy at best. But I mean,
there's a reason. There's a reason I didn't mention him. There's a reason I mentioned Chim for the Eagles and not Elijah. Like Elijah needs to go somewhere he gets targets. Chimere Dike is good, like just kind of being that third guy. But Badger is like, he's got that number one receiver mentality. He's like, yo, give me the damn ball, let me make some damn plays. Well, no, I can't disagree with that. I mean, do you guys want to go longer and do like the whole D line, or should we do like do that as like another episode? Because I got one more question I can ask otherwise.
I think this is a good point to stop because I think we did kind of the skill position guys here, and then
so we haven't. So that's why I have one more question. Okay. Well, do we take a fullback?
No, hopefully BVS.
No fullbacks in this class.
Ben Van Sumeren.
I'm about to say between BVS and dang, what's my man? Blasting Game. I was his name. I'm about to say, what's his name?
Is he still on the team? Is he still on the team?
I'm not sure if he's on the team. I'm pretty sure that he'll be back for camp for like a
okay.
Especially once we got to get the news on exactly where BVS is and his.
That's why I was saying, and I mean that wasn't his first position either.
Let JP tell it. We will take a fullback. We're gonna take Willie Lampkin, North Carolina offensive guard, and we're gonna play him at fullback because he's 5'10". 296 pounds, and he clearly won't be playing offensive lineman in the next level. But he's a wrestler. He had a wrestling background. He, in terms of leverage is his best trait, if you ask me. He's rarely outmaneuvered. I mean, it's kind of Jason Kelsey-esque when you watch and you like how Jason, because he was so small, he could get under the guys that were bigger than him. It's kind of Jason Kelsey-esque to watch him, but he's not gonna. I made a joke with friend of the pod Ryan Roberts where he tweeted to ask me anything. He said, "I got time. Ask me, give me a prospect. I'll give you a comp for them." And I was being funny, and I said, "Willie Lampkin." He said, "Future offensive line coach." And I mean, don't get me wrong, I get it because the future for him in this league, unless he makes the transition to another position like that, or he makes a career as a specialty guy, will be bleak. But hell. We at this rate, we don't know what Howie Roseman gonna do.
Give me big Desmond Watson.
They gonna ban the tush puss, and he gonna be like, okay, I'll just go draft Willie. We're just gonna use him at the one.
Real quick before we get out of here, what do y'all think about that whole? I mean, I know I pretty much know how we all feel.
I don't want to talk about it again, bro. That shit just pisses me off. It's against us. It's against the sanctity of the game.
Yeah,
and it's whack. It's soft. Like that shit's not football. We're gonna put belt to ass for the next 50 years for this shit, man. Like
not a real football play.
Did y'all see Nick's comments about the vote?
Yeah,
he was like,
he was damn right.
He said JG, Kellen Moore, and who else? Shane Steichen. He was like, he better have at least 3 votes on protecting it because that's the reason they got head coaching jobs.
He's damn right. Damn right. I also
Puff
appreciate
your
it.
chest out, Nick.
I mean, he's the only one wearing shorts. Power
I
move.
saw that.
Now they say that a real Don doesn't wear shorts, but I mean Dom is the Don, I guess. So Nick can be the consigliere. Maybe they just flip it around because he can't be wearing shorts. It's a Sopranos joke.
Okay,
You guys aren't. This is like your WWE nonsense, dude. People get it.
Yeah, forget about it.
Yeah, there you go. That's basically it.
Well, all right. I think that's gonna do it for this episode. We'll continue part 2 of this conversation, diving into edge, D tackle, and O line on our next pod or possibly the pod after that. But yeah, thank you to all 76 of you who tapped into the stream. We're gonna release this as a pod tomorrow. So if you're listening after the stream on whichever podcast streaming platform you're listening on, be sure to leave us a like and a review. Rate us 5 stars. Tap in with all the work Quell is doing, whether it's the Boomer Bust Pod or his draft boards, and I think we're planning on putting out some mock drafts this week, if I'm not mistaken. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be back sometime this week, and we'll possibly, I'm not making no promises, possibly have a little surprise for everybody. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for listening. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. Well, so how's the weather in Philadelphia, you guys?